At this point, I would like to, with the interest of time, we will have not time too much for the question and answer. If anybody has a questions, our panelists will be around, so you can ask them a question. So at this time, we will ask our next session on AI in medicine, and we'll have our next moderator. Thank you.
Good evening. Finally, we are reaching the topic which has been delayed for quite some time. As you will see in the board, is advances cutting edge in healthcare and artificial intelligence. It's with great trials and clinical publications which are too lengthy to be mentioned at this time. And above all, he's an excellent physician and has done and promoted research from bench to bedside, encouraged students, and has been an examiner for MBBS, MD, and PhD students. Without further delay, I want Dr. Devarajan to start his views on what I called problems and promises, or pros and cons in artificial intelligence with relevance to medicine. Thank you. Dr. Devarajan, please go ahead.
Namaste. I'm thankful to the organization for giving an opportunity to take part in this very earth-breaking topic, AI in health and service. Now, they claim by machines and from algorithms, also deep learning can bring out the diagnosis early, treatment early, cure the patient early, get new drugs, prevent infection, and also predict outcome. They are claimed from the AI. But what has happened is now, the human being touch will not be there. So what we require now, AI will be an assistant to the physician, helping him to diagnose, to prevent the human error, and also to diagnose, but nothing like a human being diagnose it. Now they claim they can diagnose prostate cancer early, breast malignancy early, metastasis in the lymph nodes early, and also chat box for the patient to talk to the doctors. But what is happening here now, the personality, the privacy, recording, guarantee, nothing is given. So here we have taken the pinch of salt, but it can overcome a physician or a nurse. So I thought that we cannot release the physician from this, counselors, overall research workers, and also people connected to the medicine cannot be replaced. What I can think was, it is only an assistant who can give evidence, reduce the human error, and speed up the thing. If it's going to be doctor-friendly, patient-friendly, pharmacy-friendly, it's a triangle: doctor, patient, pharmacy. All the three, one removed triangle will be out. So I thought that AI cannot survive. So I thought my impression about this, AI can only help the man to bring the evidence, but man has to suppress the whole thing. Patient also, they found 3 out of 4 patients did not like it. Boss of the hospital did not like it. But it's a very potential tool for a man to have less physician burnout. The physician burnout is one of the reasons where he has to go through so many records, so many evidences, which all can be removed now. And chat box for listening, and also machine deep learning for diagnosis. So I think that should be a dictum. So I welcome other people to give their view. I finally conclude my talk as this is a helping hand to the doctor and also the nurses, paramedical people, rest people. You can replace the man. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Devarajan, please. So now we have a panel for AI, and while Vidur gets his members of the team up, exactly what you were just saying, this morning I was having a discussion with one of my professors about AI, and the first reaction was, oh my God, AI is going to be so bad for us. And I think as clinicians, we have to embrace AI, use it in our own way, rather than being led astray I mean, we have our experience with EMRs, right? EMRs were supposed to be helping doctors, but it was basically a tool for billing, for management. It was not really a tool for clinicians to use. My impression about EHRs is it's a tool developed by engineers for engineers, and they let us doctors play with it. So let's not repeat that mistake with AI. We are on the cusp of major things that are happening in AI in healthcare, and Vidur Mahajan and his team is going to tell us about specific use of AI, and maybe we can start with defining what is even AI. It's like there's so many different aspects of AI. It's fascinating.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Chabra. Thank you to the organizers for this opportunity. I certainly do wish that the individuals here were part of my team. But they're more mentors than anything else. I'll start off with maybe just introductions and then go into AI. So my name is Vidur. I run a small radiology artificial intelligence startup called Carpal.ai. We are essentially trying to take the drudge work out of radiology and let machines do some of that, making radiologists faster, cheaper, better, all those good things. To my right, I have Dr. Anurag Agarwal. Dr. Anurag Agarwal is, if not the most, one of the most renowned, foremost scientists, clinical scientists in the healthcare AI space in India. He served as the director of the IGIB Institute. I think he was a critical care physician at Baylor. Left everything, came back to India, joined academia. So that also happens. And now is the Dean of Life Sciences at the prestigious Ashoka University. And he's essentially he's amazing. Then we have my very, very dear friend of more than 2 decades, Kritika. Dr. Kritika Rangarajan is a faculty here at AIIMS in the Department of Radiology. She's one of the foremost researchers in the mammography AI space, and also studied at IIT and did her residency from here, and like another, extremely accomplished person. And of course, we have Dr. Devarajan joining us as well for the session. I think I will take the liberty of defining AI and then, leave it to the others. So, who here in this room has used AI?
They've been using without knowing about it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. So, who here uses Google Maps? Right. I think everyone. Who here sees Netflix? Correct. So AI is all around us. We are influenced by it. We are using it. It's a part of us. It is basically machines learning without being explicitly told what to learn. Right? Is one definition of AI. Certain definitions are, machines doing things that humans do. That can be defined as AI. Machines doing things that humans can't do is also AI. I am especially fond of this one definition that is derived from what is called the Tesler's theorem. Tesler's theorem says AI is whatever machines can't do yet. So it's from like 50 years ago or something. So it basically says that AI is a moving target, right? In the year 1954, when the term artificial intelligence was coined, if someone would have turned up with a calculator, right, our regular calculator, and said, I can do the square root of 246 till 20 decimal places in half a second, right? That would have been AI, right? It would have been the epitome of intelligence. Today, we don't even think of it. They don't even exist anymore, frankly, calculators, right? Today, we want AI to predict cancer. We want AI to drive cars. We want AI to fly planes and, land space shuttles and do all sorts of things. So, So it's a moving target. And we don't even consider Google Maps to be AI. We don't even consider Google Search to be AI, Netflix, all of these things, although they are again, the most complicated and complex algorithms that exist. So with that, I'll maybe hand it off to Dr. Agarwal. If you could just give a brief overview in your view of where AI in healthcare is today, practically, and where you see it in the future. Maybe start with where it is today, and then we can go into the future.
Thanks a lot, Vidur. And I think you said something very correctly, which is AI is almost a moving target. We keep changing. Some of you many people in this room are old enough to remember a cover of Time, The Brain's Last Stand, when Kasparov was playing Deep Blue 2. And we know what happened. And even though, Kasparov wrote a book later on talking about how everything was rigged against him, he acknowledged at the end of the book, it was only a matter of time. And yet, every one of our smartphones carries more power than Deep Blue 2. In fact, today, when they program a chess playing game on your smartphone, they have to intentionally dumb it down to give you a chance, at least feeling it's like a competition. And then you might remember something called AlphaZero that DeepMind did, in which a program, given only the rules of chess, nobody to play with, in 4 hours, got to a point that it beat the world's leading chess playing program that beats grandmasters 26-0. And those of you who understand how rare such a score in chess is, this is mind-blowing. But we don't hear stories like this in medicine yet. We heard about, IBM's very big effort, and we all remember the game of Jeopardy. When IBM programmed Watson to win the game of Jeopardy, more AI went into understanding the question and then went into answering the question. So, for example, if the question is, this hat is elementary, my dear Watson. Well, we know we are talking about Sherlock Holmes, we figure out the deer stalker hat. We have context. Watson had to be trained to figure out the context of the question. Retrieval of information after that was trivial. This made IBM and Watson for oncology specifically, promise to cure cancer. That brings us to the current space. How many of us use Watson oncology? Nobody, because it doesn't exist anymore. Why? There is no equivalent answer. It's not a game of Jeopardy. It's not a question selected for one clear answer. It's a question with many possible answers depending on context. So where AI is excellent today is wherever there is one single correct answer. That typically comes most in image classification. And that too not disease diagnosis. In classification of an abnormality defined by a radiologist in an X-ray, for example. If you were to take 125 different possible abnormalities found in a chest X-ray, AI will beat a radiologist in 121 of them and will be as good as a radiologist in 4 of them. Which means when the AI says the chest X-ray is normal, it is normal. The only autonomous applications of AI in health today come from these scenarios. If AI says chest X-ray is normal, you can go straight to the patient. No reason for radiologists to even look at the film. Of course, not every AI is this good, but some AI certified in the EU for this purpose are thought to be this good. Change the question slightly. Change the question to what is the best treatment for this given patient. Now the AI has a problem. In fact, the AI even has a problem if you ask what is the diagnosis of chest X-ray. It can do all the findings, but if you remember your Bayesian system, there is a prior probability. AI does not know that. So a diagnosis can be different for the same findings in different clinical contexts or even the same clinical context in different countries. And where I think AI today is, AI is good for classification for images. It is good at summarizing text. LLMs have been outstanding. I have to do my US board recertification, so I also do the 30 questions every 30 questions every. So only for the purpose of scientific experimentation and never for the purpose of cheating. When I have the last day left and 30 questions to answer, I have learned to use GPT-4, to which I subscribe. I used to get around 70 to 75% correct. Last time with GPT-4, I got 90% correct. And one of the questions I got wrong, I overruled it. So again, with very specific contexts, even with clinical questions, which can be broken down to diagnosis, context, things, with large language models and generative AI, it is there. But again, all of you know who have tried these questions, the answer to the question could be accurate, but not fit for purpose. Fit for purpose requires understanding of context, patient, situation, resources. That AI cannot do yet. So where we are is everything looks great. None of us look an immediate threat, but all of us are at a point where we need to start seeing where do we add unique value beyond our knowledge. And a good friend of mine that some of you might know from UCSF now, Atul Bhatte, used to speak of once upon a time, information was what distinguished doctors. We had the Harrison textbook, other people didn't. Then information became a commodity. Then skills became what distinguished us. Eventually, these things will also become a commodity. The one thing that will never go out of fashion is an understanding of the overall situation and context, which is still a human property. With that, I think I will go back to Vidar or to Kritika, whichever he decides.
There's a question, please.
At this point, if 121 times the AI is right,
Better, yeah,
right, the 4 times is equivalent to a radiologist.
for a finding.
Right. So there's no time it is that AI is better than a human. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, in 121 out of 125 possible findings,
Yeah.
it was better than a human radiologist. For 4 out of 125, it was equivalent of a human radiologist.
121 times is better than radiologist.
For 121 of the possible 125 reported findings on chest X-rays, it was superior to a human radiologist. There's a very nice Lancet Digital Health paper, I think. I'll have to find a reference, but they actually broke down X-rays by findings and then compared humans versus AI.
But at this point,
May I add an
Out
observation
of
on how AI
125
works?
possible things that can be reported on an X-ray as findings, infiltrate this. So we're not speaking diagnosis. It was superior to a human radiologist. So which means it's almost impossible for you to imagine a scenario where in calling out normal films, humans are superior to AI. Good AI. I mean, AI comes in all varieties, but for that particular AI.
So may I make an observation on how AI works? I'm from IIT Delhi. I'm an engineer, of course, representing Wheels also here. What we do in AI is it's a very, very large mathematical model, and we give input and the output to it repeatedly from different sources. So thousands and thousands of radiographic images would have been fed to this mathematical model. And just to share with you, it takes almost years to train the AI model. To give you an example, the Microsoft, when they were training their AI engine, they actually hired a nuclear power plant to operate the computer and the systems. And the chat GPT and all these things, they run on those kind of systems. So it's a very, very large mathematical model with thousands of mathematical equations. We give input, we give whole lot of output, and that model does a correlation of input and output, creates its own set of parameters. Once it has done that, then every time we give it an input, it uses that parameter and gives us what the projected output is. So our AI model are as good as what they have been trained at. So that's why they are able to do it very quickly, but they can't replace the human mind. In other terms, when we look at the evolution of the mind, what we say sometimes is AI engines have reached a stage where rat's brain is. Starting from a house fly to a fruit fly to this, they have reached a rat's brain. Human brain will take some time. Thank you.
So if I
Just
may
to add one small thing to that to illustrate the point, when they took chest X-ray for tuberculosis trained AIs in Africa, and they took it to Rawalpindi in Pakistan, the dirty lungs that you see in South Asia confuse the AI tremendously. It can find those infiltrates that what we would call in India dirty lung because we see it in normal people, but it did not realize coming from Africa that these things can be seen in normal people. So it's a question of that.
It is same thing what Yogesh said, that it was not given the Rawalpindi data. As simple as that. So it's as good as the data that has been basis for doing it. But it will all change. All of this will change very fast. But I can tell you one thing. This is a technology. Hello. The kind of work that we are doing in healthcare today for our healthcare customers in US is not something that I had imagined I would do otherwise. Because it used to take such a large amount of coding and work which was unaffordable, which I can do with much less time and coding. B, the time that was required to make results out also is going down. So both these dimensions are going down fast, and data availability, as Yogesh said, is important and going down. So I think please be ready for surprises in your discipline. I am not an expert medical guy, but
The speed at which this development is happening, we in technology world had a law called Moore's law, and Moore's law said that the technology will develop at this pace. Now in the AI space, the technology is developing at something like 30 times the Moore's rate. That's the so it's really mind-boggling. We ourselves are stuck.
So we do have to hear from Kritika, but one more thing which I think all of you are talking about is machine learning. But AI is, there's another aspect of AI called generative AI, which we also should hear about because one thing which we should as clinicians be ready for, we're already in the era of Google Doctor. We are now going to be faced with ChatGPT Doctor.
So as they say, everybody says that. So AI with the side is beautifully point out different geographical findings, those things. Like how the Google Translate is coming to a lot of translates are there. Like that Google Translate put the same Russian to like. So we can put an AI is a common one. We can find out all the country-wise. If you choose India, the finding data for Indians are millions of findings data inputs. They go to like a Kazakh, they go to like that. Maybe it works well. As Sir said, all AI doesn't work at the same. The AI with the powerful engine is going to work it out. So data is very important.
Maybe let me give a lead-in to Kritika on something I would love to hear from her.
Lack of medical teachers.
When Kritika, as a radiologist, is trained and a new one comes, she cannot transfer her learning to the new person immediately. In your example, sir, the advantage of AI is after you spend the power of a nuclear reactor training it, the next guy can take a pre-trained model and train it on their own little GPUs and their own little places. So that I think is very important, and that leads to generative AI, which I'm going to leave to Kritika.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I think that's sorry. Yes.
The lack of medical teachers in profession now. So Mata Pita Guru Devam become Mata Google Devam. Now, to study what I did, I studied 300 cases of fever lasting for months to years. Put 2 of them into the app. Up to a certain extent they came, then they wrote, please consult senior doctors, consult ID consultant. So as you said, it cannot go beyond one level. You use it for record purposes, X-ray, MRI reading, some to extent, but not to prove different process. It's only servant.
Kritika, please. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. So, as far as what you said first, the difference between machine learning and generative AI. So, just a little bit on that. So, AI is a very broad term, which I think Vidur very nicely sort of summarized as being a moving target. So, anything that you're able to get done, in an automated way, is something that we loosely call AI. But then came machine learning, where the concept is that you're not programming it to teach it what to detect. So if any of you are from the mammography CAD era, when we had computer-aided detection in mammography, which would tell us where the mass is. So what we used to do back then was we used to engineer the features. We used to say that, if something looks like this mathematically, then you call it a mass, and this is what a cancer looks like. But that didn't work very well, and we all know. So if you come from that era, then you know that there was this huge disappointment. Everyone thought that we've replaced radiologists, at least the second reader is not required, and then large studies actually show that it did more harm than benefit anybody. Yes, we did more biopsies, we were detecting more lesions, and we were subjecting people to a lot more medical investigations without actually getting anything out of it. But machine learning functions differently, like Sir had mentioned. You're only giving the inputs and you're giving ideal outputs, and you're letting the system figure out the mathematical concept behind it. So how it works is there's an input layer, there is an output layer, there is a hidden layer in between, and when that hidden layer sort of became very large, that's what you call deep learning. So most of the image processing actually uses deep learning. And we've actually moved from that kind of deep learning into something called transformers. So transformers actually take a lot of context into account. So you're not only looking at one particular finding, you're trying to look at the entire image at once and coming to a conclusion, which is why transformers perform better. And transformers are what we use in something called natural language processing. So which is where generative AI comes into picture. So the ChatGPT that we use is a form of generative AI, which is actually a transformer architecture. And that's the current generation of AI that we are all using is largely based on transformers. And Sir made a very interesting observation on how it's easier to sort of take a pre-trained model. I'd also say that even a little bit of the opposite is true, which is, for example, in the COVID era, when we start discovering what new organisms are going to look like, it's not that simple to train a new model, whereas it's very simple to train a new human being, where you have a radiologist already who knows to read the X-ray. You tell him that you're looking for GGOs in this pattern. They can instantly sort of recognize what happens in an X-ray, even though they've probably never seen a COVID patient. Whereas a computer would need 1,000, examples of that to really start understanding what really is happening.
No, what I wanted to point out is what Sir was saying. It is mainly pattern recognition. Cognitive science says that human beings learn from two systems, right? The system 1, the system 2 approach. System 1 is basically a problem or the pattern recognition. And that is where I think where AI is very helpful in trying to identify patterns. And the more remote patterns you identify, the better physician or clinician you are. Whereas context is the black matter, or the acid fills up the universe. So correlating with context and making critical decisions using systems 2 approach, where you trying to take input from multiple things and do, is very difficult. So what we need to be teaching our students, or what we need to be training our residents, is no longer on information retrieval, because it is available in the click of the finger. It is how to interpret the information in the context of, or in the context of the patient or clinical context. So that is where I think that shift has to take place in education and in training. And we also need to train ourselves as physicians as we go along in our career. So that is something which...
So what I'm hearing as a physician, so a human is creating a slave to master them. Is that right? Are we trying to improve the reliability of a radiologist's interpretation? Or are we trying to create the 100% perfection radiologist in everywhere in the world?
So
When we are talking about radiology.
I'll answer that. there are people in this world, sir, who do not have the privilege of accessing clinicians like Kritika at AIIMS, right? Those people, in fact, they have no access to clinicians at all, not even, tier 2, tier 3 clinicians. By thinking that we are threatened by our own slave, we are also depriving those patients of care that, sorry, I'm picking on you, a Kritika clone can deliver in that part of the world. So, or even in the most developed parts of the world, right? So the framework I use is certainly autonomous AI is going to come. There is no doubt, right? Whether we like it or not, the chat GPTs and bards of the world have actually leapfrogged the clinician altogether, right? Today it doesn't issue a prescription. 3 years from today, they might start buying liability insurance and start issuing prescriptions as well, and suggesting physiotherapy and surgical fields, I think, may still be relevant. But autonomous AI is going to come. If we can assume self-driving cars are going to be a reality, then certainly autonomous doctors as well. But it's nothing new, right? And what is going to happen is, if in your clinic you're seeing 50 patients a day today, you will see 500, right? If as a radiologist you are reporting again 80 scans a day, you will report 800. You may report 8,000, right? We were just talking about that, like why are mammography machines at AIIMS not overfilled with people, right? Why are there not queues of women there wanting to get their scans done? Because there are no radiologists to read those scans. And that seems very provocative and sounds very new and novel, but all we have to do is go over to the Department of Pathology and Lab Medicine. And I know AIIMS has one of those track systems where, one pathologist probably signs out 1,000 tests a day. And, in the larger labs across the world, like one pathologist might sign off 10,000 tests a day. And it is because of that pathology and lab medicine are completely democratized, right? You can be anywhere in the world and you will be able to get a CBC done. So that's the framework I use, right? Like, how can you democratize access to starting with basic care? And then, of course, in the advanced care, you provide doctors a very reliable assistant to be able to do that. So that's my, at least that's the world we see.
Can I say one sentence? What you said is what you said. I'm summarizing. It is what is being said is AI will not replace doctors or radiologists, but AI plus doctor will definitely replace AI without doctor. That definitely will happen. So it is the tool and it is a slave, but somebody has to use it. The one who doesn't use it will definitely be out of profession.
Yeah, let me be controversial on that.
It is very sad.
As long as you require people to sign the report, the doctor is there. I think what Vidur was mentioning, the pathologist signing the 10,000 CBC isn't actually looking at the CBC. They're just appending a signature. So in that sense, a CBC machine has replaced a role of the pathologist that used to do it manually at one point in time. Even with AI, at some point, somebody will say, why do we even need a signature? And that's what he was mentioning with the liability part. Most of these signatures are for liability issues. And another word that I think summarizes what he says is the scaling of privilege. And the scaling of privilege that Eric Topol coined in a recent editorial is what's going to drive it, and whether doctors need to sign it or companies will take liabilities. It will be driven by finances, not so much by doctors. And in fact, one of the points you made regarding slaves, well, the people inventing these AIs are usually not the doctors. So their interests in whether we succeed or do better or worse is not there. In fact, if we were to be replaced and more people were to be served and there was more money to be made, As long as the liability doesn't exceed the profits, this will keep occurring.
It is very sad to hear.
If I may, Dr. Shripad.
I just had one comment and one question. Being a surgeon, I don't feel threatened, so that's a good thing. Yeah. Yes. So the other aspect, kind of taking the argument further of cloning Dr. Kritika and the signature part of it. Are we heading in a direction where the Kritika's clone is going to make Kritika completely obsolete in the future? I know that that's been part of the discussion here, but if you don't need the signature, then why do we need Kritika in the first place?
Yes, so I think I would take that that argument further and say that, you know, all of us here who've chosen medicine or chosen whatever field we are, have chosen it because we enjoy a certain level of challenge. And I wouldn't enjoy it anymore if I knew that something I do can be done easily by a machine. And I think that is the, that is what we should be looking to do. I wouldn't look at it as being threatened by it. I'm actually honestly excited, if it's taking over some of my work and allowing me to do better work, then why would I feel threatened? I'll probably do 2,000 interventional procedures a day, or I'll probably do, those set of MRs which are not so easy to be, easy enough to be read by AI. But in today's day, there is a huge shortage of radiologists as we see it today. We're not doing as many imaging studies as we can do. And if I can augment that and make sure that the quality of work that I'm doing is very challenging, then I'll probably take it, right? So I don't think I would feel threatened by that. I would rather hope that a lot of this cult work that I do today, I wouldn't have to do tomorrow.
And the other question was, what progress is being made in the medical legal liability as far as this goes? Because that's a big topic and needs a lot of governmental regulations and stuff. So I wanted to hear the panel on that as well.
For medical legal now, taken now. It's very difficult now. Now, two views given by algorithm. See, people go by algorithm treatment. Asthma poisoning in assistant can be given once the tests are normal. One book says should be given, another book is not be given. Algorithm. So algorithm treatment is very risky. So never go by algorithm treatment.
One question.
On liability, so the verdict right now is, apart from a few specific use cases that I'll just mention, it's all on the doctor, at least as far as radiology is concerned. So it is all a assistive tool. If you're using AI to, say, help you find a lung nodule on a chest CT scan, and the AI says that it is benign, and basis that you say it is benign, and it turns out to be malignant, it is the doctor currently who signs the report who is at fault. So that's very clear today. The few use cases are, one is tuberculosis screening using chest X-ray. So the WHO has formally approved autonomous AI subject to certain criteria to be used for the screening of tuberculosis in the developing parts of the world. India is a leader in this space. Our government is doing a lot of work using AI in the rural areas. The second is, as Dr. Anurag was mentioning, there's a small company called Occipit from Lithuania, and that has gotten approval, so European CE approval for autonomous normal identification of chest X-rays. So the doctor still has to sign it. The doctor still takes liability, but they are allowed to sell that as an autonomous tool. So the movement is there, but again, the concept we've not touched upon is all of this is very high implication AI, which I think is very intuitive to this particular audience. But generally when we are addressing engineers, etc., we need to tell them, this is not a dogs versus cats problem, right? It's much more like 1 in 1,000 error rate across 1 million patients means 1,000 errors a day. So that's why liability and medical legal implications are flowing. But lawyers are using these tools in the US, right? I think several people here from the US. lawyers are going through databases to find missed cancer using AI, right? You can process 100,000 mammograms and find the 10 cases that the radiologist missed, and you can so, so that is also happening. It's extremely strange, but the world finds
What
nails
about
for hammers.
colorectal cancer screening? Huh? Is it going to affect the colorectal cancer screening? Like,
Yes, let me give answer. I'll tell an anecdote. Patient came to doctor's room, shaking of the head, spinal hemorrhage, jaundice, and high fever, bone dimples, with the toe of the shoes cut open.
I'm sure it's going to affect.
A was given the chance to diagnose. Stops
Cats will
the second line.
go down.
What has happened is demoscystine at incompetence, spinal hemorrhage, hepatitis, jaundice, hemolytic anemia, toe shoe has been altered because of hyperuricemia. She comes in incompetence. It's better to not use it for
Right. So basically, if
On colorectal AI, somebody asked the question. Capsule endoscopy with generation of images is now being screened by AI methods. I don't think it has FDA approval as such. So there's still a human would sign off on it. But if you look at something beyond that, if you look at the new tests coming out for genomic signatures, they were almost all developed by AI. So there is AI in terms of looking at something, classifying as an image. Then there's also the other type of AI looking at signatures that could be found in your blood or a tissue. So I think both sides, something will come.
Yep. So if we don't have much time left. Unfortunately, this is a fascinating subject, and we have to look forward to it in a very collaborative, formative, and we should not feel threatened by it. We should think of it as a tool that is going to help the clinician in us take care of our patients better. If the CDS support and every EMR is supposed to have a clinical decision support, right? That aspect of it is, again, AI that's helping us. It's picking out our data and is propping up things from up to date on the side. That's a type of AI also. And also things like what we were just talking about. There's a lot of genetic companies in the US. If you were to do this seminar in US, I'm sure there would have been 2 vendors at least of lab companies that'll be sitting outside in a booth. They will take a drop of blood and they'll tell you what cancer you're going to get 15 years from now. Or there was also a vendor that came to my office a bunch of years ago, which will, from a few drops of blood, they would predict which antihypertensives are going to work for me. And things of that nature. That's all machine learning. That's because like input output that you just described.
Dementia, right?
Yep. So if we in the last few minutes, if you can summarize whether.
Why don't I let Kritika summarize? Instead, I'll put you on the spot.
I'm quite in this spot today, Vidur. But I mean, so I just wanted to say that taking from your point on where are we going with AI. So I think instead of trying to see where AI fits into the current system, maybe we need to reimagine the whole system and look at what can AI do for patients at large, and see how we as skilled people can fit into this system to make it better. For example, like rather than taking a radiologist to 100% or making sure I do 2 times or 3 times the number of scans that I'm able to do, another way of reimagining it could also be, can I actually meet a patient and explain what they have? For example, if you were all patients and you're not thinking as a physician, but as a patient, and supposing there's a patient who's just been diagnosed with cancer, wouldn't you want to meet a radiologist and understand what your imaging says? It's impossible in the way we do radiology today, but maybe AI can make that happen. So what I'm trying to say is, I think, it's a white paper right now and we can draw whatever we want on it. And maybe we should all do that. And maybe we should actually lead the revolution towards AI.
So as you were talking, I was just thinking about it. It's not a matter of how many scans can you do. There's also a bottleneck of how many patients can actually be scheduled for that scan to begin with. Maybe AI can help us with a better scheduling system to schedule those patients also. So that's all, it's all interconnected. It's all, at the end of the day, it's all healthcare related artificial intelligence. It's all connected. I can give you another example. In my own office, we signed up a contract with a company called Mind You from Israel. They have a chat bot. We gave them a list of, we have about, in my clinics, we have about 15,000 high-risk patients. We gave them a list. The chat bot calls those patients every month by rotation. In a natural language chatting, the patient calls, hi, this is Eleanor. How are you doing, Mrs. Smith, today? Based on the answers, it can figure out if this person is at risk for going to the hospital in the next few days or not. And it sends me a report every single day. Most of it is not useful, but even if I prevent one patient from going to the hospital because I'm in an ACO model, I'm responsible for every single dollar that's spent on the patient. That's useful.
I think
So thank you so much.
Yeah, I just will get to one point here. Since we're talking is just developing, isn't it our duty now to give proper input to AI and give output? Because so we can do that. Apollo Hospital had been taking input from us to develop AI. So even Vidur, you have a lot of data with you, and even AIIMS has. So if at this point, I think we can have better AI tool with us in future. So that might be our duty at this time when AI is developing, not only asking it to serve us, let us serve it for the future service. Thank
Ma'am,
you.
that is actually, that is a beautiful summary of the discussion, that rather than letting the world build this, why not help build it the right way, right? Whether it's the right data, whether it's the right applications, whether it's, the right testing, the right deployment methods, whatever it may be, monitoring, right? So yeah, as physicians, please, please help build it.
Yeah, like nurturing a child.
Excuse me, I have a small question to ask. What does the panel as a whole think, what would be the next landmark thing in AI in terms of applications such as NLPs now, and in terms of architecture too, like transformers are there. So what do you think like future would be like in terms of model architecture and in terms of application? Landmark thing you think like it could be, but it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter.
So, yeah.
So if you are, first of all, I doubt any one of us three from a technical standpoint can say what will replace transformers. But what we can probably say is what problem of current AI will be solved in the next iteration. Will it be by combined use? So for example, current problems are hallucinations. So if you think of true foundational AI, it cannot be done with the current systems. What would it take to convert today's generational AI towards true foundational AI is unknown. It'll clearly be partly algorithm, partly data. You can feed all the data you want. You can't explain some of the things that are occurring. But new algorithms, of course, I think are beyond at least any one of us three on the panel to figure out what in CS would be the big new thing. But yeah, I'm probably gonna devolve further on the same idea of providing knowledge as a foundational system on which you build generative capacity.
I have a comment to make on that. Here, Sensei Raj here, founder of World Economic Summit. I think one word what we have left out is, the gentleman has been talking about liability. I agree completely with you. It is the ethics that we have forgotten about it. Ethics has to be the fundamental component. And of course, the value-based systems that we have to evolve would dictate what algorithms would be fed into and then what output would come through. That would decide where the path of our human race itself is taking into, not mention the humanity. On that, I rest. Thank you.
So actually, if you look at within a last month or so, there was an editorial in JAMA just on that topic, ethics in AI. JAMA has been doing a lot of, like Lancet, JAMA has been publishing a lot of articles on AI in medicine and healthcare. And one of the very interesting opinions they had was on, I heard a video of the gentleman who wrote that. He's from Stanford, Dr. Jain, I forgot his first name. And this is exactly what we have been talking about is actually incorporated into his video.
It so happens that I'm one of the original signatories for ethical AI.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that ethics has to be on board. Absolutely. We are dealing with human lives here. All right. So thank you so much. I know we can talk forever on this topic. Before we leave, we have a little memento, a certificate of appreciation for your participation. Thank you. So this concludes our second day of CME activities of the Global Health Summit. We are going to be continuing at the hotel at Le Meridien. For those of you who are invited, please make your way over there for the Women's Forum. That's going to be starting at 6 o'clock. And then the gala dinner over there. Yep. The entertainment tonight is a stand-up comedian at Le Meridien. Thank you so much. Thank you.